You come at us, we aren't rolling over. Sure, we're going to get hurt. There's no doubt. But they're going to get hurt just as much. And they don't have the manpower to build the cars right now. Then we're going to cancel Starlinks right away from Elon Musk.
America just lost a $20 billion deal, not to China, but to its closest ally. In 2025, Ontario slammed the brakes, no batteries for the U.S., no electricity without a surcharge, and no more U.S. jets in Canadian skies. While Trump fumed, Europe moved in fast. And now even Canada's power grid is being weaponized. What broke the alliance? And could this be the end of North America as we know it? In March 2025, Ontario made headlines by signing a massive $20 billion deal with Volkswagen to build one of the largest electric vehicle battery plants in North America, located in St. Thomas. But here's the shocker. Not a single battery from this factory will go to the United States. All of it, every lithium-ion cell, is locked in for export to Europe. The plant will produce enough batteries to power over 1 million electric vehicles every year, but Ontario made a bold choice. Instead of feeding its longtime partner to the south, it's now supplying Europe's green energy transition. The official reason? Stability. Europe offers firm climate laws, long-term clean energy targets, and a cooperative trade environment, something many Canadian officials say Washington can't provide anymore. Ontario's premier said, "We need partners who don't change the rules overnight." The U.S., still reeling from Trump's 50% tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, had no comment. The silence speaks volumes. This deal isn't just business, it's a strategic shift in loyalty. Ontario, once deeply tied to Detroit and Buffalo, is now sailing east toward Hamburg and Rotterdam. And while American factories wait, European ports are preparing to receive a jackpot of clean tech. In January 2025, former President Trump surprised many by imposing 50% tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, doubling the already high 25% rate in a dramatic bid to protect American jobs. Ontario's Premier Doug Ford declared it as an absolute disaster for both countries and warned of strong countermeasures. The effects were swift. Canada's exports to the U.S. dropped 10 percentage points, from sending 78% to just 68% of all exports between May 2024 and May 2025. In May, the 43.9 billion Canadian dollars in exports to the U.S. marked a steep 15% year-over-year decline, while shipments to other countries rose 5.7%, Reuters. Manufacturing also felt the pain. S&P Global's Canada Manufacturing PMI sank to 45.3, its lowest since 2020. Reflecting diminished activity tied to tariff uncertainty. Reuters +5 Reuters +5 Reuters +5. With Canadian leaders warning of possible supply disruptions and energy pushbacks, Ottawa and Ontario stopped waiting for Washington to change. Instead, they began redirecting trade, power, and partnerships away from a once trusted ally, showing how Trump's tariff gamble didn't just fail, it backfired. In early 2025, Ontario made a bold move that turned heads in Washington. It used its power grid as a political weapon. For decades, Ontario has quietly exported electricity to U.S. border states like Michigan, New York, and Minnesota, supplying enough power for over 1.5 million American homes and businesses. But when Trump raised tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum to 50%, Ontario pushed back. In March 2025, Premier Doug Ford announced a 25% surcharge on all electricity sent across the border. This wasn't just about money, it was a sharp political message. The surcharge, around $7 per megawatt hour, could bring in $243,000 to $400,000 daily, depending on energy demand. For many American families and businesses, that means monthly bills rising by $100 or more. The reaction was fast. U.S. grid operators issued emergency alerts, while states began testing backup systems usually saved for natural disasters. Premier Ford made it clear, "If the U.S. escalates, I will not hesitate to shut off electricity exports entirely." Energy experts say this moment marks a turning point. Ontario has weaponized electricity, using infrastructure once seen as peaceful and stable as a tool of international pressure. And for the first time, America is learning how it feels to be dependent on someone else's switch. Ontario escalated its pushback by targeting U.S. tech and defense interests. Premier Doug Ford announced Ontario would cancel a $100 million Canadian Starlink contract designed to bring high-speed internet to 15,000 rural communities, citing retaliation for U.S. tariffs and concerns about data sovereignty. Days later, Ford banned new and renewal contracts with U.S. tech firms, stating, "We won't do business with people hell-bent on destroying our economy." At the national level, Prime Minister Mark Carney initiated a full review of Canada's $19 billion Canadian F-35 jet deal, a swap for 88 U.S.-made Lockheed Martin fighters, calling into question the flagship defense project. Carney confirmed discussions were ongoing with France's Dassault and Sweden's Saab as alternatives. This chain of events culminated in Canadian leaders taking a visible step away from Washington and toward Europe. Prime Minister Carney's first international visit was not to Washington, it was to Paris, where alongside President Macron he emphasized a new defense and economic future. These developments mark a dramatic shift. Canada, once a steady buyer of U.S. military hardware and tech services, is now re-evaluating its dependencies, confronting Silicon Valley and Pentagon power with firm alternatives. As U.S. tariffs pushed Canada away, Europe moved in fast, with billions in investment ready. In 2025, a German energy fund pledged 500 million euros to build a green hydrogen facility in Thunder Bay, powering clean energy growth across Ontario. Companies from the Netherlands, France, and Germany are launching battery assembly lines, EV plants, and parts factories in southwestern Ontario, built around strict EU climate and labor standards. Meanwhile, Canada's largest pension funds, like CPPEIB, with $714 billion Canadian under management, and OMERS, are shifting money away from U.S. assets and investing more in Europe's green economy. Market data show investors pulled over $87 billion from U.S. equity funds, while pumping more than $100 billion into European equity funds in the first half of 2025. Analysts say this shift is driven by trust and stability. Europe's clear climate goals and consistent rules are appealing. In contrast, Canada now views the U.S. as too unpredictable. Canadian firms are even billing in euros and yen, stepping away from the U.S. dollar for trade settlements. This isn't just symbolic, it's a structural shift in North American finance and trade. With Canada's public money and private investment flowing east, Europe is gaining ground, and the U.S. is being sidelined. Canada's break from the U.S. isn't loud, but it's real. What began as a trade dispute has turned into a silent revolution reshaping the continent. Ontario led the charge, and now Quebec and British Columbia are following close behind. In the first half of 2025, Canadian exports to the U.S. dropped 15.7% in April, while shipments to non-U.S. markets increased by 2.9%. Ports in Montreal and Vancouver are expanding to handle new routes bound for Europe. Beyond trade, defense ties are shifting. Talks on NORAD upgrades have slowed, while Canada accelerates NATO spending, now meeting the 2% GDP target 5 years early, and seeks deeper ties with European NATO members. At the June 2025 NATO summit in The Hague, leaders pledged to raise defense budgets to 5% of GDP by 2035, a signal that Canada is preparing for new roles. Prime Minister Mark Carney's first foreign trip took him not to Washington but to Paris, Berlin, and Brussels, where he signed a new EU-Canada security pact alongside Ursula von der Leyen. Canada isn't just deflecting U.S. pressures, it's rerouting its future. While Washington doubles down on protectionism, Canada quietly builds bridges to Europe. The balance of power across North America is shifting, silently but irreversibly. Canada didn't quietly walk away from the U.S. It was pushed, cornered, and forced to choose a new path. Now, with trade routes, energy flows, and defense deals shifting toward Europe, Ontario has redrawn the rules of the game, and others may follow. Subscribe for more deep dives into the global power shifts reshaping our future, and let us know in the comments, is America losing its grip on North America?